That is perfectly fine. So here's what we'll do. So I'm just going to begin just by kind of asking you a series of questions and stuff.
Okay.
Just talk about whatever comes to mind. It's perfectly fine. So here's where we're going to begin first. And this is just the basic information. So just first begin just by stating your name, when you were born, and where you were born. If you could just start with
Okay. My name is Charlie Douglas. I, my name and what else?
when you were born, what year.
Okay. My name is Charlie Douglas. I was born in 1940 in Haynesville, Alabama.
All right. And so the first part of this conversation is actually just going to focus a lot on your childhood, like when you were growing up.
Uh huh.
So the first question is just so, like, when you're thinking back now, what are some of the things that you just remember most about your childhood when you were growing up?
Okay.
Yep.
Oh, all right. When I was growing up, I can remember my mother and her sister went to New York to work,
Okay.
and this when I was about 3 or 4 years old. They left and went to New York to work, and left me and my cousin with my grandmother and my great grandmother.
Oh,
My
okay.
great grandmother didn't adopt me, but she took me. I stayed with her, and my two cousins stayed with my grandmother. And we played together and we did all that. But at night I would go to my great grandmother's house to sleep, and in the morning I would come back up to my granddaddy's house and play with my cousins. Now one of my cousins is the same age I am, and one of them is 2 years older than I am. And my grandmother was, well, I tell you this, my grandmother had a son that died, and my great grandmama was keeping him. So when he died, my great grandmama took me because my mama had left me down there with my great grandparents, and that's how I got to stay with my great grandmother.
Okay. Could you just share the names of all those people that you're talking about?
Okay, all right, my grandmother was named Luvania Williams, but she was a Peterson, and my granddad's name was Jude Williams, Jule,
Hmm.
Jude Williams, and my great grandmother's name was Mamie Peterson, and my great granddad's name was Tyler Peterson,
Okay.
and my you don't want me to go back further than that, do you?
Oh, sure. Go back as far as you can. Absolutely.
Oh, my great grandmother uh, was father. My great grandmother mother, which was named Henrietta Hunter,
Hmm.
and Henrietta Hunter was my great grandmama. Oh, let me see how she was. The great Henrietta was my great grandmama mama, and so my grandmama, great grandmama, which is Henrietta Hunter, she married Bayless Thomas, and so they had two children, and one was Mamie Thomas, which was my great grandmother, and I had a sister named Mariah, and Mariah married and went to Birmingham, and I don't know from then on. I know her son. No, she had a daughter named Mamie Peterson, Mamie Williams,
Okay.
and Mamie had a son named Andrew Williams, and some other sons, but I don't know them.
Right.
But go back. I'm gonna go back to my grandmother, which was Luvania Peterson, which married Jude Williams, and Jude and my grandmama had a brother named Adam Peterson, which my great grandmother had two children, Luvania and Adam.
Okay.
Okay, now Adam never married, so he lived with his mother, which was my great grandmother. We lived together, and he had a farm. He didn't sharecrop because he owned his property, owned all of the stuff that sharecroppers lived on other people's land.
Right.
he did not live on anybody else's land. The property he lived on, he owned. You all know this because the property that you all got now that I showed you,
Yes.
that was his property, him and his grandmother property, his mother property.
Right.
Okay, so they owned that property, so they didn't sharecrop. My granddaddy, which was Julius Williams, he didn't sharecrop either because he owned his own property. But he didn't do that much farming. Now, all the thing he did, I always used to laugh and say everybody else was growing corn and he was growing Johnson grass. and he used to, but he had these little fields like potatoes and corn and stuff like that. But he didn't plant cotton and stuff like that. Because he went to World War. This is Julius Williams. He went to World War I.
Mm-hmm.
So when he got out, he had how they got a pension. Well, they wasn't a pension. I don't know what you call it when you get out the service. But he was going a check from the government. But it wasn't that much.
Right.
But it sort of kept him from having to farm, other than the little farming he was doing. Now he had I think 2 cows, either 2 or 3 cows. And he didn't have a pasture to put them in. We used to take them where the grass was and tie them and let them eat the grass.
Right.
Now his brother-in-law, which was my Uncle Adam, he had a pasture. He had about 20 cows.
Okay.
He had a farm. He used to plant cotton. He had he had about 25 acres of land.
Okay.
And I got some mortgage where his daddy, which was named Tyler Peterson, had mortgaged the land I don't know how many times.
Oh.
And my uncle would pay the mortgage off.
Right.
That's how he wound up with the property.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And when he passed, my his mama passed when I was in she passed in 1955.
Okay.
This is my great grandmother, Mamie Peterson.
Mm-hmm.
And when he still lived in the house, me and him lived on in the house all the way through high school. I stayed with him. I used to do all the housework, cleaning and cooking and all that kind of stuff.
Right.
And then when I graduated from high school, I went to the service.
Mm-hmm.
And to get a long story short, we didn't have electricity until I went in the service and made some money and sent some money back so he could put electricity in the house that we lived in. This is my great grandmother's house now. I'm getting 2 different folks. I should have stayed with got with the great grandmother and then went to the grandmother and went that way, right? It would have been easy to keep up with.
That's fine. That's why we recorded it, so it's not a problem.
Because I'm jumping back and forth between the 2. But anyway, my granddad owned the property. You remember when we was up in Haven and went riding the street?
Yeah.
And I told you it had grown up and the house had burned down.
Yeah.
That's where his house was. He had 2 acres of property there.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the property that my mama, he willed to my mama and she willed it to road. But I don't know whether you know it or not, but one of those acres is our property. You paying two taxes right there for that property right there.
Oh, okay.
Don't you pay 2 taxes?
Yes.
You pay three of them, ain't it?
Yep. Mm-hmm.
Okay, because there's 3 different lots.
Yeah.
But anyway, one of the lots, and I don't know whether you know it. I think I told you that a long time ago. But one of those, she had wheeled both acres to road.
Okay.
And then when we went to the lawyer, he said my granddaddy could not will all the property to road because he, she had sisters and brothers.
Yes.
And that's why it became out. My grandmother had part of that property too. So my granddaddy had part of it. He could only will his part.
Exactly.
He get an outright deed for it.
Yes.
And the other was our property. But now you know who know that now? Me and you. Nobody else know that.
I got it.
Because all the other folks is way off. You know, they ain't as close.
Yes.
The thing, cause my auntie Inell, she had more children than anybody, and that's what they don't know nothing about that property.
Right.
That I'm telling you about the Al property.
Right.
Okay, getting away from the property, going back to my great grandmother.
Yes.
My great grandmother. That, like I said, that's who I used to live with.
Mm-hmm.
And I used to go. She used to take me to church with her, and then I used to go sometime with my granddad. My great grandmother, which was Mamie Peterson, which her maiden name was Thomas, and her mama name was Hunter, and her mama married her Thomas, and that's why her name was Mamie Thomas. But we used to go there. She used to take me to visit everybody because I stayed with her.
Right.
And when she go to visit, like on Sundays, when we get out of church, we went to some of everybody's house. And we walked everywhere we went. Some of them were 4 and 5 miles, some of them longer than that. But that's how they did back when I was growing up.
Yeah.
Now my granddaddy, my granddaddy, which my mama, daddy, and mama, they didn't do that much visiting.
Oh.
You know, like my great grandmama did. And so Phyllis and Julius, the other two cousins,
right,
that we grew up together like sisters and brothers.
Mm-hmm.
And most everybody down there thought we were sisters and brothers. But my grandmother, which was Luvania, she in 1954, I believe, somewhere along in there, she had a leg taken off.
Okay.
At the knee, and she couldn't, and she was afraid to walk on her crutches.
Yeah.
So she had a wheelchair that we used to roll around in. But she didn't ever, after that, she didn't cook or do nothing like that.
Okay.
My granddaddy, which was named Jude Williams, he did all the cook every morning. He cooked. And I would leave from my great-grandmama's house, walk up to his house, and eat breakfast, get dressed, and go to school. Now, we went, the school we went, the name was Russell. And it was about, I guess, 5 or 6 miles from where we lived.
Right.
And we walked there, not just us. Now, when we walked a certain distance, like up to the town of Hayneville, there was other people from other part of the little town of Hayneville. We would all join in together.
Right.
And we'll walk to school together.
Mm-hmm.
And there was 2 ways to get to school. There was a road that was paved. It was Highway 97. It was paved, but we never walked that road because the white kids, when they was in the bus and drive by, they used to like a balloon with water in it.
Yeah.
They'll throw it out the window and they hit you.
Right.
So we walked the back road, which was a dirt road. And we all walked that road and walked all the way to the school and then walked back the same way the afternoon. And when we get to Hamer, we separate. Everybody went to his own house.
Right.
Now, like I said, Russell, when we was going to Russell in first grade, Russell was a high school then.
Mm-hmm.
And it was a 2-story white building, and I went there until I got 7th grade.
Okay.
In the 7th grade, it was in the wintertime. We was outside playing, and the school caught fire. When we look around, the school was on fire.
Oh no!
It burned. It was just like paper flying in the air.
Oh.
Everything was flying, and that school burned down when I was in 7th grade. Okay, now some of the other kids, what they did, they opened schools in the churches.
Okay.
And different places. Now I came to Montgomery though, and went to the same school Rose and David went to Carver.
What was the name of
I
it?
came in the 8th grade. I stayed there from 7th. Well, part of the 7th school year was almost over because it burned down in the wintertime. And I stayed at Carver through the 8th grade. And when I left Carver, I went back to Calhoun because we could catch the bus and go to Calhoun. Calhoun was about 20 miles away from where I stayed.
Okay.
And we used to catch the bus and ride that. And you know, when I got there, like I said, I stayed at Calhoun till I graduated, which was in '59. And hold on a minute.
Okay.
I don't know who that is. I ain't gonna worry about him. But anyway, after let me see. Do I want to go all the way through high school and then go back?
Well, here's the question I had for you. You were talking about the farming, right? So
About the what?
Farming. About farming.
Farming, right.
So tell me a little bit just what you remember about farming when you were a kid and stuff like that.
Okay. Well, like I said, my granddaddy had a farm, and my uncle had a farm. My uncle had a larger farm than my granddaddy had, because he had 25, 30 acres, and my granddad only had those 2 acres.
Okay.
Okay. What we used to do when we're farming, you raised everything on the farm: chickens, turkeys, guineas, hogs, cows, horses, mules, and all that. Okay.
Right.
We used to have to. When we come home from school in the afternoon, you always got a chore to do. You're gonna feed the hogs, feed the cows, or whatever you need to feed.
Right.
We used to raise corn, and we had a thing called a crib. It was a big building, just open, and it might have been 25 feet by 20-something feet, and was maybe 15 feet tall. It was way up there. And they used to, when they gathered the corn, they used to throw the corn in the crib. Okay, the corn served 2 purposes. You had to feed your animals with your hogs and all that with corn. Then you couldn't buy meal like you do. We go to the store now and buy it in a bag.
Right.
You used to shell the corn, take it to the mill, and they would grind it up and give it back to you. And that's how we used to get meal. The only thing we were buying out of the store was flour. You couldn't buy flour. You couldn't make flour because we wasn't growing no wheat or nothing like that.
Right.
But the corn, we shucked the corn, shell it, and bring it to the mill, got the meal. Okay, another thing, like I say, when we came home from school in the afternoon, you always got a chore to do. You got to cut wood, go get water, because my great-grandparents didn't have a well, so there was a spring. You know what a spring is? That's where the water automatically comes out of the ground.
Yes.
And it's just constantly run.
Mm-hmm.
And they used to clean out around it and stick you seen them barrels that they put moonshine in, them big barrels? You see at the distillery, they used to get one of them and stick it down in there so the water would run inside of it. And we used to take the buckets and go to the spring and get water. Now, the spring away from our house was at least a mile. Mm-hmm. We used to get the water, bring it back to the house. Now, you're going to have to drink that water. You had to cook with that water and all. Now, you don't take a bath in that water, and you don't wash your face in that water. Mm-hmm. Well, we had a ditch running down by our house. You go to the ditch and get water to do that with.
Right.
You got it? And I was telling when Kim was in high school, our hot water heater went out, and she said, "Daddy, how we gonna take a bath?"
Yeah.
I said, "Baby, let me tell you this. You see that stove sitting right over there, and see sitting right beside that stove is a sink.
That's right.
You take the water, you take it out of the sink, put it in a pot and boil it, take it in there and pour it in the bathtub." Now, what we had to do, we had to go to the ditch, get the water. The water wasn't very hot. Now, we use a number 10 zinc wash tub. You might have seen them. I don't know if you've seen one before. But it's round, and it's big enough to get into.
Mm-hmm.
And I was talking to a guy at bowling there the other day, and he was saying, yeah, you know, and if you had 5 kids, all of them took the bath in the same water. Because nobody wanted to just keep going to this, get water out and take a bath in. So, and you was only taking a bath once a week. That's the way it was, once a week.
Bath once a week.
Once a week. And you had to, like I said, you had to go get wood, make a fire, put the water on the stove, boil it, and then take a bath in it.
Right.
And what else I want to tell you on that? And and back then you had certain clothes you wear. You had your school clothes, your church clothes, and your everyday clothes.
Right.
You didn't put on your church clothes there on Sunday. You ain't put on your school clothes there you going to school.
Mm-hmm.
And in the summertime, you didn't wear no shoes. My great grandmama used to tell me, you can't wear your feet out. You can wear them shoes out.
Yeah.
So put them on the ground. So we walk around with no shoes on. And that's not just at home. That's going from place to place.
Right.
and it's shoot. I know when I was little, my great grandmother used to carry me on her neck, and I was little.
Mm-hmm.
And my cousin that I grew up with, Julia, she got a grandson, and I guess he must have weighed 300 pounds or
man.
close to that.
Right.
When he was little, he was weighing, what the average kid might have been weighing 50, he was weighing 60 or 70 pounds.
Right.
So she used to tease me all the time. We used to call my great grandmama Mama.
Mm-hmm.
She said, Mama used to carry you on her neck all the time. I said, well, if you want to carry your grandson on your neck, carry him. He was weighing 50, 60 pounds. And I know she ain't want to carry around on her neck. So that's how when those things came up. And getting back to the farming,
right?
We didn't have no tractors. You had a mule. We ain't plow no horses. We used to plow mule, and you had plows that you had to hold the handle. You ever seen one of the type plows that you had back then? You had one they called a turn plow.
I'm not sure.
And it would turn. You go down the plot of land. It'll turn it rolled the dirt over.
Mm-hmm.
And then when you go to the opposite end and come back up that side, it throw the dirt back to the one that you just throwed over. So it makes a row there.
Mm-hmm.
And that's how you made your rows up. That was called a turn plow. Mm-hmm. Then you had another. Well, they had the same plow, but they had another blade they go on there, and they call it a sweep, and it was wide. And where you done throwed your rows up, you go right down through the middle of the row,
mm-hmm.
and you would throw the dirt back up to both sides at the same time.
Right.
Let me see. Let me see. That's just putting it at the beginning of the farming season. If you had corn there, you would knock down all the corn stalks, because you done pull the corn and put the corn in the crib. So when you start off next year, you knock all the stalks down, and then you burn them up, and then it goes back in there with the turn plow and throw the rows back up again. And then after we get the rows built up, then he plant the corn. Now, they had a thing called a distributor. You put the corn in, and you could figure so it just put so many. When you're going down the middle of the row, it just put so many grains of corn in. It didn't just plant them all together.
Right.
But now when it went together, when it came up and you got ready to hold your chopper, a whole blade between the middle, so it wouldn't all be just laying side by side.
Mm-hmm.
And you use the corn, like I said, you use the corn for the hogs, the cows, or whatever. And we grew up. We didn't buy no meat out the store. You didn't buy no chickens. You didn't buy no eggs, because the only eggs you had were the eggs that the farmers raised, like my granddad used to raise, and great-grand and uncle. And you would take those. If you get a dozen of them, you could take them up to the store, and they would buy them from you.
Right.
and then they would sell it to most of white people because black folk didn't have to go to the store to buy eggs because they were making, had the chicken, the lay the eggs.
Mm-hmm.
And what you did after every year you was after chicken laid some after only the female laid the eggs, right?
Mm-hmm.
And after they laid so many eggs at a certain time of the year, they stop producing eggs, and they sit on them, and so the eggs can hatch. If
Right.
you didn't find it, now what we did, we had a hen house and had nests so they could go up and lay in the nest. But some of the hens would go out and lay out in the field,
Right.
and then if you didn't find them, they would sit on those eggs till the eggs hatch. And so what you did when the one that went to the hen house, you would save some of them eggs that you had already had. So when she stopped laying eggs and started sitting on the nest, you would put maybe 8 or 10 eggs under her, and she would hatch them.
Right.
You sit on. I don't know. I can't remember how long it took.
Mm-hmm.
But they had the little bit. Used to call them biddies,
Okay.
and they would raise them. Once you hatched them all, they would take off the nest, put her in a coop.
Mm-hmm.
They put the biddies in there with her, and they would follow around. She'd go around scratching in the yard and all that. But you would feed them, and what you did, going back to the corn, you take the corn to the we had a mill house in Haynesville.
Okay.
That used to grind up corn. You grind it up in some. They don't grind it all the way like they do cornmeal.
Okay.
They grind it. They leave it in little chunks. and that's what you used to feed the chickens with, not the whole grain of corn, but they cut the grain up
Right.
and then make it as small. And when the chickens hatch,
Uh-huh.
you only have they kill all the male chickens
Okay.
because you only gonna have 2 roosters in the yard.
Got it.
You're gonna have an old one and you're gonna have one coming along. All the other roosters, if you had 10, all of them got to die.
Got it.
And that's how you ate your chicken. That's it. And they only kill them on Sunday.
Okay.
And my great grandmama used to go out there and see the ones to catch that one right there. And sometimes we had to run them down to catch them. And run them down, pick them, clean them, and take the intestines out, and she'd cut them up and fry it. And on Sunday they should do that.
Mm-hmm.
Now on Thanksgiving we didn't buy no turkeys because we had our own turkeys.
Oh, okay.
And we used to sell. They used to sell turkeys. They used to take the turkeys up during Thanksgiving season and take them up in the Haynesville and on the where they call it the square.
Yeah.
They used to take them up there, and white people used to buy. Black folks ain't hardly buy them because they were raising turkeys to sell.
Yeah.
So that's how we got the turkeys.
What do you remember?
And we never killed no cows. What they do, they raise the cows till the cows get, I don't know, maybe a year or 2 old. Might not be that old, but they get up and weigh a certain amount of pounds, like maybe 300 or 400 pounds. Then they would hire somebody to take them up here to Montgomery to the stockyard.
Right.
And the market would buy. People would buy them. I think it's the folks that was killing them and putting the meat in the store.
Mm-hmm.
But we ain't never killed no cow or nothing like that. And like I said, mule and wagon was the way you get around.
Mm-hmm.
They used to ride the mules because everybody didn't have horses. Some people had horses and mules.
Okay.
But you would ride the mule wherever you wanted to go. The mule was a workhorse. I mean, he plowed the field, pulled the wagon, rode you wherever you want to go. You used to have 2 mules pulling the wagon. And the wagon was the way you haul everything around the jet dog. You didn't never go no more than 4 to 5, 6 miles with the wagon. Now, like I said, some folks drove the wagon all the way from Haynesville to Montgomery, which was going to be about 30 miles.
Uh-huh.
60 miles coming and going.
Gotcha.
That was way back before my time when they
Uh-huh.
were doing that. And getting back to my granddaddy.
Yeah.
I'm a great my great uncle. But I spent more time with my uncle than I did with my granddad on that. My granddaddy was like
what
this.
was that uncle's name again? What was the uncle's name?
Adam Peterson.
Okay, gotcha.
Adam Peterson, and my granddad was named Jude Williams, which was his brother-in-law. Now he would actually play horseshoes with us, me and my two cousins. Now you know other old folk, grown folk play with the kids, but he used to go outside and we set up a horseshoes, and he would be, me and one of my cousins be together, and him and the other cousin be together.
Right.
And we playing horseshoes. And on weekend, on Saturdays, we're gonna go fishing. We're gonna go fishing just about every Saturday, during the fishing season in the summer and spring. And my cousin used to go fishing, but they never go hunting with her. And in the wintertime, on the weekend, my granddaddy used to go. Jude Williams used to go hunting, and we used to go rabbit hunting, bird hunting. He liked the bird hunt, and he had a bird dog, which name he had three dogs, I think. The bird dog name was Kate. I can remember her name just like yesterday. She was a pointer, and he used to take me with hunting. So when we'll hunt quail, and they used to call them partridge, but they're quail. And when the quails is in a covey, you might have 25 of them in there, and you walk through the field, and they are all jump up at one time and fly off.
Okay.
And he didn't have he had got one of his eyes put out. He was hunting with some white people, and they shot. You know how when you shoot in a shotgun you got bird shot.
Yeah.
The little pellets.
Yep.
And one little pellet had hit him in the eye and knocked his eye out.
Oh man.
And whoever the white guy was, I think he was a doctor. He replaced his eye. He gave him a marble eye.
Oh.
And when he had to go to the doctor, he would always take care of his business. But then when he used to go hunting with me, he carried me. So when the birds get up, and they ain't staying there all the time, they land. And he wanted me to tell them where they landed at. And then we would take Kate, which is the bird dog, and go down where they landed at, and she would sniff them out, and she would call a pointer. And when she get to the bird, she would stand up like she was frozen in place. And she would just stand there and look till you get there. And when you get there, and you tell him, thresh him out. And then she'll jump and go in there, and the bird fly up, and you shoot him. And we had another one. We used to hunt opossums too. Only my granddaddy did the Jew. My uncle ain't do none of this. So we used to go possum hunting at night. And when we used to catch them, we put them in the bag in a crocus sack. Well, we used to call them crocus sack. I think they're burlap now. I think that's what they call them. But anyway, we put them in the sack. We didn't kill them when we catch them. Put them in the sack, bring them home. Next morning, get up and kill them and clean them.
Got it.
I don't think most folks don't know what opossum is. They know what a raccoon is.
Yeah.
But opossum, the dog would catch them on the ground, and then some of them would run up the tree, and then you got to go up the tree to shake him out. Shake him out the tree, because we didn't carry no gun to shoot him out the tree. We shake him out the tree. Mm-hmm. And that's where the hunting came in. And oh boy, now let's see. When my mama and your grandmama Mary,
yeah,
when her and her sister Elizabeth came back from New York, that's when my mama married your granddaddy, David, and she moved to Montgomery. And Rose, I think David was born in 45, and I believe Rose was born in 46, if I'm not mistaken. And they was up here, and I still down there. She didn't bring me back because my great grandmama wasn't gonna let me come back. She couldn't get me back. The same way with my other two cousins.
Right.
Mama couldn't get us back because the grandparents wasn't giving us up.
Got it.
And I told my daughter that. I told Kimberly that. Kimberly said, "Well, she was your mama. She could have got you any time you want." Now I said, and got killed too. Because them grandparents wasn't giving up them children. What did they kept them 3, 4 years? You ain't getting them back. So that's and I used to come up and stay with May, like on the weekend, and I do all right during the day, but when it started getting dark at night, I started crying because I wanted to go home. I wanted to go back to Lowndes County.
Uh-huh.
So that because that's why that's why my heart was there, I guess.
Yes.
And May started telling me, "Hey boy, I ain't bringing you up in no more. You gonna act like this." But it was just a thing. During the day it was nice, but at night I wanted to go home.
Yeah.
Oh, and getting back down to the house. The house that I grew up in, which was Mamie Peterson and Adam Peterson, it only had 2 rooms. It had one room we slept in, and one room, well, that was a half a room, was a kitchen. And then they had another little room, ain't nobody slept in there. We kept stuff and junk and stuff in that one. All in the room that the house had 2 doors, one in the front, one in the back. And you open the front door, and the wind blows straight through to the back door. They used to call them shotgun houses. Mm-hmm. In the summertime, we used to when we come out the field, we open both doors and lay down in the middle of the floor. And that's so when the wind blowing through the house, you get a cool breeze blowing on you. And there was no air conditioning. Like I told you, we didn't have no electricity at all back then. And for wallpaper, there wasn't no wallpaper. We used to get the magazines and tear the pages out of the magazine and plaster them on the wall. Put them on the wall so if there was any crack in the wooden wall, the paper would be covered. Mm-hmm. And well, after we, you got all these pictures with food and people out in different places. And I remember when, and used to come home from the field and lay up on the floor and look up in the top of the house and said, boy, I sure like to eat that. They had different foods in the book.
Uh-huh.
I sure would like to have some of that, but my parents wasn't gonna cook nothing like that. And let's see. We killed the hogs for the meat, got the chicken out the yard, and like I said, the only thing basically you bought from the store was flour, coffee, and what else? Lard. Lard was, like we get this oil to cook with now. They had lard was in a you could get it in a can and you could get it in a box. And what happened was now most time we kept our own lard when we killed a hog. The fat in the hog, what they used to do was put it in a big wash pot.
Right.
And cook it. And what they used to do, you heard of cracklings, didn't you?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay, that's how they used to get the crackling. When they kill a hog, they would cut the hog up, and they would cut it in little blocks, little chunks, just like you see them crackling. Put them in the big wash pot, and cook it until you get all the grease out of it. And then you take it out, and then you take the grease and put it in a big 5-gallon can. They had a can called a lard can. Uh-huh. It was I think about 3 to 5 gallons. And where you pour it into that. And that's how you got your grease to cook with, because you got it from the hog. Right. And what else? And your meat, like your hams and all that, and the ribs, what you did, you had a house called a smokehouse. And in the smokehouse, when you kill a hog, you would put the meat in there, and what they would call salt it down. You take salt and put on it, and keep it in there till it cures.
Right.
And I guess the salt draws all the water out. And then after they done cured, they used to make a fire in there, and that the smoke would come up and and go into the meat. And that's how they got smoked. Like now you say smoked ham, but they were smoking ham way back when I was growing up. And that's how you got your bacon. Like say in the morning when you cook, that's where you got your bacon at.
Right.
And you already had your eggs because you had your chicken. But you had to buy your grits. So you know, grits is only corn that grind up a little finer than the other stuff. It's a little coarser than meal, but meal is real fine, and the grits is just a little bit coarser. You know how grits are. They grind all that we got from the meal house in Haynes. We didn't have to buy it at the store. And like I said, grits. And then I remember my granddad, a Jew. I told you my great grandmama Livonia got her leg taken off, and he used to cook all the breakfast. And I can remember right now, and close my eyes. For breakfast, he used to cook eggs, bacon, grits, and biscuits.
Oh yeah.
And he used to make the biscuits from scratch.
Yes.
And he used to have an apron on, and he rolled it. You ever seen? We used to call it keeling it. When you make it up sort of stiff, and he would sort of keel it with his hand, and just keep. I don't know why he was doing that. I guess to get it softer. But anyway, he used to roll it up and then put it on. We had this table we used to put on, and they had this rolling pin. You know what? You seen a rolling pin before?
Yeah.
It's about, I guess it's maybe about 3 feet long, and it got 2 little handles on the end, but it's round all the way. And you take it and you roll the dough out. And he used to take a top, like a top off a jam jar, and cut his biscuits out with the top. Now my great grandmama did a little different. She used to take her hand. Once you roll it, she used to tear some off the end and take her hand and sort of roll it around in a round ball, and then take her elbow and flatten it out. Now that's my great grandmother used to do that. My granddad did a little different. And we had a wood stove where you could burn coal if you had coal. Had a wood stove. It had a bottom where you did your bacon at. It had a top, which is just like a stove now, where it had eyes on it then, but where you made the fire under each one of the eyes. And that's usually cooked instead of now like you got the gas and you turn it up. But anyway, it had 4 eyes on it, and then it had what they call a warmer. That was above the eyes, and you put your food if you want to keep it warm, you put it up in the top of that stove when the fire down there on the where you did your frying and everything, it would keep the top stuff warm up there.
Right.
And boy, I'm gonna tell you, there's a whole bunch of stuff. Now my great grandparents did stuff a little different from my grandparents.
Okay.
They did it more old fashioned because we had what they call a fire. Well, each house had a fireplace. We didn't have no gas. We didn't have no electricity, so you had to have wood and put it on a fire.
Yeah.
And we had a fireplace, and in the wintertime, we used to sit around the fireplace because that's how you got warm. And now we didn't only use the fireplace to get warm because when it got real cold, they did the cooking in there on the fireplace. They had the metal skillets. You seen these heavy metal skillets with legs on them? I got one here, and you used to put stuff on there and pull the coals out from the fire and set the skillet on top of it. Make all the coffee. All the coffee was made on the fireplace because that was the other way of cooking, other than making fire in the stove and going in the other room, which was colder than the room that you was in. And what else? On the fireplace, we used to put at night. You would try to have hardwood to cook. But we used any kind of wood, but pine wood would burn up too quick. We used to sound like oak trees and hickory trees and elm trees and all them. That was hardwood, and you would put at night when it get cold, you go to bed. You take a big one, which would be about 8 to 10 inches in diameter, and maybe about 3 feet across, because that's about how wide the fireplace was. And you would take this big log and you put it on the back, and you used to call it a back log. and that's what kept the house warm at night when in the wintertime. So when you get up in the next morning, you didn't have to start the fire from scratch because you already had the one in the back burning. And we used to go out and haul wood because we didn't have no wood there. You go down in the woods, cut a load of wood, bring it back to the house, and it would last you maybe a month, depending on how much you cut. And everything you had, you cut it with an axe.
Ooh.
You didn't have a chainsaw. We had what they call a cross-cut saw.
Right.
You might have seen some of the pictures where you had a person on both ends.
Yes.
Sawing wood. You only did that when you're sawing big wood, like big logs. But most stuff you cut with an axe. Axe was the main thing of cutting wood.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and what else?
Well, the thing that I was just thinking, like as you're thinking about these things now, what are some of the lessons you think that those experiences just taught you, just as you're looking back now on them? What are some of the lessons you think?
The lesson you learned?
Yes.
All right. Well, the main lesson that my grandparents taught me, like they would only get money at the end of the year, right, when the harvest time.
Uh-huh.
And they would always say, put back some money. Don't spend it all.
Right.
Because there's going to come a day when you ain't going to have no money and you're going to need to go back on it and get it. And I learned, and that I try to teach Charles and Kim that too. Always, I don't care how much money you make, don't spend it all.
Mm-hmm.
Always save something. If you make some extra, put a little extra back. Because the day is coming when you're going to need something and you might not have it.
Right.
What else lesson I learned? Working hard, and it'll if you work hard at what you're doing and do it right, you'll move up in life.
Right.
Next thing I used to tell people, buy you some land. Land, I found out land is worth more than a $50,000 or $100,000 car. A $1,200 acre land is worth more than a $50,000 car.
Right.
Because it's increasing in value rather than the car decrease in value.
Mm-hmm.
So that's another thing I try to pass on to young folks.
Right.
If you spend all this money, buy you some property. That's where you're gonna make it at. Don't get. I learned that just because you see somebody else get it, don't you get it? Because you don't know how they got it, and they might be living in a better shape than you are.
Mm-hmm.
But let's see. Shoot, I learned a whole bunch of lessons. can't think of all of them. Don't buy stuff just because you see it.
Yes.
I be telling Tree like to buy shoes. If you ain't got 50 pairs, you ain't got none.
Mm-hmm.
I think I got 4 pairs, don't even wear them. I said, I wear them till they wear them out. I don't, and I wear my foot out before I wear all them out. But I just don't buy stuff just cause I got money to buy it with. Now, there's things that I do buy, and I like fishing tackle, stuff like that. I like guns, but I don't buy a whole bunch of guns. I already got about 8 or 9 that I only bought 2 of them. I got the other one from my grandparents. And fishing tackle, I'll buy that because I like fishing. And patience is something you need to learn too.
Mm-hmm.
Have patience. You ain't gonna get it right now. If just because you want something, you can pray for it all you want. But until the good Lord get ready for you to have it, you ain't finna get it.
Right.
But you gotta have the patience. If you don't ask for it, then you gotta have patience to wait and see if He's gonna give it to you.
Yeah.
And some things like say, you say I prayed about this, but the Lord didn't hear me. The Lord hear all prayer. He just don't answer some of them.
Mm-hmm.
That's what folks don't realize. The answer is no. You ain't finna get it.
Yes.
Cause I tell people, growing up, and now I can see a lot of things that I didn't see back then, and I ask the Lord when I'm praying, I ask the Lord to guide me,
Right.
and someone tell me I'll be going somewhere and say, go this way or stop here, and when I stop there, I see somebody I know from the past. I said, the Lord had to send me by here because I was going somewhere else, and I've done that so many times.
Right.
And I've had another situation where I said you had to listen to it. I was coming from church one Sunday and I came off 80 down on Interstate 65, and when I got out on 65, there was a tractor trailer going down the road in front of me. Behind it, about 200 yards, was another one. So I pulled off the side road, got behind this truck, and my mind said, move over, get over in the other lane. And when I move in the other lane, that tractor trailer run right in the back of that one.
Oh man.
Yeah, I ain't never forgot that. I said, you
Okay.
follow your first mind.
Yeah.
Cause a lot of times that's telling you what you need to do. But that's like I say, growing up, that's how most black folks made it.
Mm-hmm.
They prayed about stuff and then they had the patience to wait on it.
Yeah.
And the Lord answered a lot of them prayer. I know, like say, me growing up, I know two pair of shoes, and shoes I wore back then was called Brogans.
Okay.
And they were leather shoes, not soft leather, hard leather.
Hard leather.
Yeah, and when if you wear them and got them wet, and when they dried out, they'd be so hard. If you didn't put no oil or nothing on them,
yeah,
you couldn't hardly wear them. That's just the way it is. And then when back then I know when wearing shoes in the front of the shoe would the sole would come loose from the top of the shoe. You think we took it to a shoe shop, took some wire and put some wire in and tied it up,
right,
and warm till you warm out. It's just you just wasn't buying, you wasn't spending money like you had, like it was water.
right.
It's like I said, I can remember my great grandparents, and I didn't tell you about my granddaddy daddy. His name was Henry Williams.
Okay.
And they don't know where his origin from, and I've been trying to find it. I ain't found it. And when all of them died, I didn't have none of that stuff on my mind. Where you from and all that back then. But I ain't never figured out where he was from. Nobody did. But he now on his side, on my granddaddy's side, which was Jude Williams, all of those children was educated. All of them could read and write. On my grandmama's side, which was my mama, I don't think none of them could read and write. Mm. And the one that couldn't read and write accumulated more property than the one could read and write. What do you think about that?
Right. Wow.
So it's like I say, God had to give you instinct on things to do. If you ask him to guide you, he'll guide you, but you got to pay attention. He, like I said, my uncle and my great granddad, my great uncle, he accumulated. Well, like I said, if he had stayed in his dad, he'd have got rid of all of it because he was mortgaged. I bet I got 6 or 7 mortgages where he had to pay it off. But now, Arthur, you think it was a lot of money? It wasn't no more than $10 or $15.
Wow.
That's what it was.
Yeah.
Or he would sell a cow and then pay it off.
Yeah.
But that's how the money was. You didn't like I said back then they was just white folk would give you $10 or $15 and take your land. But I don't know. It's just where it was back then. And then you got some more questions.
Well, so I knew this was kind of a conversation that was going to take a while. So this is just part one. This is just part one.
Okay, so you gonna have a part two?
Yeah. So what I'm gonna do? This is what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna. So like I've been recording this, right? So I'm.
You gonna go
Let's.
through and pick out the good stuff.
Yeah. So let's
Yeah.
kind of like end here for today. But I'm gonna go.
Okay.
I'm gonna go back. I'm gonna listen to it. And then when we talk again, I'm just going to follow up some more questions just after listening through this again. Does that help?
Okay. Okay. Because I know, like I say, growing up in Haynesville, there are just certain places I could tell you a whole bunch that growing up in Haynesville.
Yes.
Like, if I want some candy, they would give me one egg, and I would take it to the store and swap it for some candy.
Right.
Or some cookies. Because the white people would take because wasn't no black stove, it was all white stove.
Uh-huh.
And they would take the eggs and they would sell them to other white people.
Right.
So you go and you take an egg and you go up there. And now, there's so many things that happened when growing up. Like I said, I remember when the clans used to ride through have a parade in Haynesville.
Oh, man.
Would ride down the streets in Haynesville.
Oh, my goodness.
And you couldn't do nothing. And
Yep.
and you didn't ever know who the sheriff was when I was smaller. Because if you go to Haynesville, like on a weekend, they may have 7 or 8 white guys sitting around in front of the courthouse. All of them had guns on.
Mm-hmm.
So you didn't know who the sheriff was.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But when we get back, we'll go through all of that too.
Oh, yeah. No, but this is
Yeah.
like I said, this is a great beginning. This is just part one.
Uh-huh. Well, I probably done thought a whole bunch of other stuff by that time.
So what I
Yeah.
give me about,
Uh-huh.
I would say give me about 2 weeks. I'm going to follow up with you in about 2 weeks.
Okay. Just let me know.
And then we'll set up another time. All right.
All right. All right.
Okay. And so
Okay.
now we'll keep using Zoom. You can just keep calling in like this. It's fine.
Okay. We good.
All right. Well,
All right. Have a good day now.
Okay. You too.
All right. All right. Bye-bye.
Bye.